everyone, Dagny here. This is just a quick Pecha from my English 392 class at the University of Waterloo. Here goes. The aim of this presentation is to show how Andy Warhol projected his own aura onto objects, people, and concepts, and in doing so, caused his aura to stand the test of time. We will explore this idea by looking closely at the concepts of appropriation and reflection. Warhol's art, whether they were paintings or films, were reflections of himself. He was at once a young, timid, and fragile boy playing the role of Andy Warhol, as well as the iconic man who changed the face of art forever. Whichever role he played, he always returned to his factory, which is where the vast majority of his art was created. He used to say, "Life is like a series of images which change as they repeat themselves." He invited people who interested him to work and even live in his factory. Right here is a picture of Andy Warhol at home in his factory. The factory was like one living image, which mirrored and reflected all of the selves Andy had within him. Warhol, as well as other factory artists, were obsessed with the color silver and tin foil. They used to say, "Any time I went to the factory, it was the right time." Warhol used to say, "It must have been the amphetamine, but it was the perfect time to think silver." Silver was the future. It was spacey, the astronauts. And silver was also the past, the silver screen. And maybe more than anything else, silver was narcissism. Mirrors were backed with silver. Baby Jane Holzer once said, "As soon as the factory opened, it became a hyperactive place. People began flocking there in droves, for parties, to interview Andy, to take pictures, to make films, to become a part of it." This is where the factory is best understood as a school, with Andy as the headmaster. There was no question that people who worked for Andy could learn a lot from him. Artists could learn about the importance of hard work as opposed to theorizing. Everybody could learn about magic and serendipity. Warhol pioneered a new and exciting kind of art. He suggested that society ought to take a look at itself, to be aware of what consumerism looked like and how it affected the individual and masses. People, particularly artists, began to latch on to the idea of self-consciousness. Traditional views about art were set aside, and pop culture began to rise. The use of everyday commodities, such as Brillo pads, shown here, or soup cans, shown in the next slide, were a tribute as well as a criticism of the average product. In his essay Formula and Experience, Gombrich said, "Have we not just struggled free of the dreary and melancholy methods by which Victorian boys were taught to draw the schema of a leaf? Can anything be more deadening to spontaneity and imagination than the learning by rote recommended by these methods?" Warhol's art is certainly a testament to the breaking of artistic norms. In his essay Saturday Disasters, Trace and Reference, Thomas Crow writes, "The debate around Warhol centers on whether or not his art fosters critical or subversive apprehension of mass culture and the power of image as a commodity. In other words, Warhol's art used the rise of consumer culture as it appeared in the 60s and turned it on its head." Edie Sedgwick was another kind of manifestation of Warhol's aura. Henry Geldzahler explained, "They are both these pale, frail, glamorous people. But Andy had always felt himself to be unattractive, and to be with Edie was to be Edie for a season. Andy lusted after people, lifting enormous chunks of people's personalities and making them his own." Here, in Warhol's film Poor Little Rich Girl, Edie is described as slight and symmetrical, with no outstanding facial bone structure, brightened by the vivid and penetrating eyes, full of small timidities, which recorded perhaps the shock that too great an honesty expects from love. In most women, Andy looked for mothers. In Edie, he found himself. Warhol once said Edie had a poignantly vacant, vulnerable quality that made her a reflection of everybody's private fantasies. Edie could be anything you wanted her to be. She was a wonderful, beautiful blank. Modern tributes to Warhol, such as the scene in the movie Watchmen, in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, attest to the prevailing mark Warhol left on society. Furthermore, his perception of society as wholly consumerist still resonates today. Similar to Warhol, contemporary artists, such as Shepard Fairey, appropriate ideas and concepts such as the manipulation of mass-produced consumer goods and produce their own versions of artwork. The creation of an entirely unique and mass-produced piece of work is now as easy as a few clicks of your mouse. Modern technology plays an enormous role in encouraging the public to appropriate images and make them their own. Websites, such as obamaconme.com, urge users to upload their favorite photo on a Shepard Fairey poster template to literally create their own iconic image. Ideas such as these are simply the same concepts Warhol applied to his art, except it is the concepts and the images which are being appropriated today. The same images and concepts are changed as they repeat themselves, so that each cycle appears to be entirely unique, and so the cycle continues. Warhol was right when he used to say, "They always say time changes things, but you actually have to change them yourself."